And it says I have a low connection, so maybe it'll work, maybe not. How are you all doing? It is Sunday evening here in Maui, very bad storm, lots of high wind, and it made me think of sort of little disasters that can happen in our life. And I think as women, one of the hardest things for us to do is to have that very scary hair loss journey that quite a few of us have gone through in our lives. In fact, as we think through about either thinning hair or losing a lot of hair at once, it's one of, as a woman especially, it's one of those things that we typically pride ourselves in is our hair. We get our hair done, we get it, we get it styled, we get foils, I don't think people get perms like they used to, but what about hair loss and keto? Is keto the culprit, or is it something else? Or maybe is it a combo? And I will tell you to take a deep breath, let it in and let it out, because it is typically not permanent. So don't freak out. Promise me, even if you're going through it, you're not going to freak out. So we're going to start with a little bit of basic science. And I know I'm supposed to hold the phone the other way, so don't ding me on that. But I want to turn the camera because I put on my computer the normal life cycle of our hair. I think I'm going to flip the camera and let you see. So we have these different phases. I think all of us are aware that when we brush our hair in the morning, it's not uncommon to have a certain amount of hair in our brush or in our comb, or even some of you that have a lot of hair, for you to see it in the bottom of the shower. Now, I've always had thin hair and I've not had much of it ever. So when I went through, I've had a couple of really bad cycles of hair loss. I'll tell you about that in a minute. But let's talk about the different phases. So this is the anagen phase. And this is the phase that about 80 to 90% of our hair is in all the time. And that's the active growth phase. And our hair typically grows about 6 inches a year. And it will grow each of these strands, these hair follicles, the hair shaft, the follicle is sort of the what it sits in inside your scalp, will grow for 2 to 3 years. And then it ends its life cycle. Every cell in my body has a certain life cycle. My skin is 28 days, my hair 2 to 3 years typically. Then it enters the catagen phase. Now this is only a couple of weeks. And this is where it sort of pauses and it goes, well, hey, yeah, I'm good. And this is only a couple of weeks. And then it goes into the telogen phase. And this is where the actual hair follicle starts to detach from the bulb down here at the base. And this is where it's going to fall out. So this is dead hair and it will fall out. But don't despair that after it falls out, way down here in the base, there's another little tiny hair that's growing. And this is normal. It's a natural lifespan to go from the anagen phase to the catagen phase to the telogen phase and to the new anagen phase. So we just circle round and round and round. And so I just want you to know that it is normal to lose hair. It is abnormal to not lose hair. What is scary is when we start to see large amounts of hair coming out at once, when we start to see our part in our scalp start to widen out, when we start to have problems. And if you have any girlfriends or any women friends in your life that need this video, that need to be assured that for the most part, the vast majority of the time, it will grow back. And it may feel like it's all going to fall out, but that's not common. So let's talk about some of the reasons that we will see this potentially in our lifestyle. First off, it's very common in women. Typically 1 out of 3 women, sometime in their lifestyle, and typically in their 50s and 60s especially, will see a natural thinning of the hair. Your scalp might become more visible. So the first thing to think about is that it could be genetics. If other women in your family tend to get hair thinning as they age, unfortunately, you are probably more likely to do that. What can you do for that? Well, first, of course, good nutrition. Don't be yanking on your hair a lot. Don't put it in tight braids. Don't be pulling on it a lot. Treat it gently. Have your nutrition up to date and things like that. So genetic, not a whole lot you can do. See your dermatologist. I think what most of us are seeing and we're scared about, and it really does freak us out, and it can be very depressing, is what we call a reactive, I just dropped my phone, is a reactive type of hair loss. And what this is there's a certain trigger. Back in 2011, I think it was, when that big earthquake hit in Japan, the 9.0, I was over there. I was in Tokyo, about 180 miles south. And when that hit, I really thought that that was the end of my life. I truly thought I was going to die. And for the next 5 days before I could fly out, there were 300 aftershocks greater than a 6 that I went through. And so I slept fully clothed. This was my trigger. I had a reactive situation where I literally would get bounced out of the bed in the middle of the night. I came home. I had PTSD. I had to go into therapy. And about 3 months after I came home, my hair started falling out in clumps. It just started falling out. And it was the trigger. And what's happening is, if we think back to what we were talking about, let's go back to these phases of life, of the hair cycle, where I'm growing, and then I go into the catagen phase where I'm resting, and then I go into my fallout phase. When you have a really severe stressful trigger, it can be death of a spouse, it can be loss of job, it can be what I went through with the earthquake, it can be a divorce, it can be a severe illness. There's some trigger, and instead of just the normal 50 to 100 hairs a day coming out, we end up with so much of our hair, it can be 20 to 30% of our hair goes into this catagen stage all at once, and then it starts to fall out all at once. And we see this dramatic shifting hair loss, and I'm talking clumps of it. So if you have gone through something like I went through, or death of a spouse, or a really severe illness, oftentimes the stress of surgery and the nutritional demands it puts on your body, that can actually cause this to happen. And it won't often, it's very rare that it's right away. So you have to look back. I went to a dermatologist about 5 or 6 years ago, when it literally just, and the dermatologist is taking his hand and he's going like this through my hair, and he's just yanking out all this hair, and I'm like, stop pulling on my hair. I came to see you because I want you to stop. Make it stop. And he explained this cycle to him, and he said, Mrs. Cindy, he said, I'm so sorry to tell you that this happened months ago, and the only thing we can do is to support you with proper rest, get your B vitamins, make sure you're not anemic, check your thyroid, but it's the stress that you went through, and it will grow back. So let me turn the camera again. I'm sorry I keep turning it back and forth, but let me show you. So when this little hair starts to grow back in here, when this new anagen phase starts, it's going to be way down here, and when it starts to come out, it's going to look like little baby hairs, okay? So if you've ever seen a guy that shaves his head and it starts to sprout out, oh, there went my computer went to sleep, but you're going to start to see little, I look like a rooster. I look like a little rooster. I had all these little, and you can still see here, so now some of that's just trauma from using my straightener too high, but I still find myself with different things having more hair loss than I would like to have. So be patient, don't freak out. Many times, if you've gone on a crash diet, that's a stressor, that's a trigger, and that's one of the reasons you don't want to go into a really low calorie and change to keto at once. Keep your calories at a good level, maybe 14 to 1800 calories while you're transitioning in. Make sure you're getting your B vitamins. Make sure you're taking your supplements as needed, depending on what type of diet you're eating. And then just get good sleep, manage your stress, all those things that are so much easier to say than to do, correct? Am I right? How many can give me thumbs up? And I just wanted to reassure you, the most important thing is don't freak out, because stress is one of the triggers. And if you freak out about it, you can actually send yourself back in. Okay, so maybe you've gotten through this catagen phase, and maybe you're starting to go into the telogen phase, and it's all going to, not all of it, but a portion of it's going to come out, and you are so stressed that's all you think about. You can actually cycle yourself back in a whole new group of them that had not gone into this rest phase, and then by default they have to go into the telogen phase, which is the release phase. If you stress out about it a lot, you can actually send more hairs into this cycle. So hi Lindy, hi everybody as you're jumping on. So just be reassured, I guess, that it is not keto itself. It can actually be the stress of it. It can be that you went too low calorie. The good news is 99% of the time it's going to grow back, but there are other things that we do want to check. So if you are anemic, that can be problematic and cause you to have more hair thinning. If you're hypo or hyperthyroid, if you're PCOS, estrogens, our female hormones, are hair friendly. They want us to hold on to it. Androgens, which are the male hormones, tend to cause us to lose hair. We've all seen male pattern baldness. So if we have a shift in our hormones, if we're perimenopausal or we're out of whack or we have PCOS, we're going to be much more likely to have hair thinning or lack of volume. And what'll happen sometimes is that if we do have long-term anemia or long-term hypothyroid, and that's why it's really important you find yourself a really good physician that'll give you a full workup with labs. You want to be aware that occasionally what'll happen is as those new cycles come back in, and this definitely tends to happen more with aging, the hairs, when they grow back in, are not the same thickness that they were. They tend to be a little bit finer. So as we age, it's just something that most women that we meet, I'm going to be 62 in April, most women when we meet them have different hair at 60, 65 than they did at 40 or 45. But if you're younger and you've started keto and your hair's just gushing out, I know it's disheartening. I understand that. Been through it a couple of times. So I had to, it was so bad. In fact, I'll try to find some pictures. I didn't let many people take pictures of me back after the Japan earthquake because I lost so much hair because it was so bad. I mean, I thought I was going to die every time greater than a 6, and I thought the building was going to collapse, and I came back. I lost so much hair. I wore a wig for a solid year. I just kept cycling into that catagen phase and losing more and more hair. And I wore a wig for an entire year because it was just, people would just stare. I'd be talking or presenting and I'd look up and people are staring at my head. So I absolutely get it. There are great wigs out there. There's little wiglets you can do. There's these fibers that you can spray in to help it be healthier. But I think my top tip for you, if you're going through this, is to realize that the incident happened before, that if you let it continually stress you out and you don't find a way to manage that and reassure yourself that it's going to grow back, that you can keep the cycle going longer than need to. So I hope that there's some help. Different medications can cause it too. Severe infection. It's not just the diet. So don't stop keto because you're worried that you're losing hair. If you stop once you've started losing hair, then you've already gone past the point because it happened back in the catagen phase. So hope that helps. I hope that's reassuring. Keep your protein up, keep your minerals, your multivitamins, your minerals, keep your, take good care of yourself. It's so easy as women for us to give to everyone except ourselves, and we take care of everyone but us, and we don't get enough rest, and we don't, treat ourselves well. But it's okay. Hair is our crowning glory. I get it, but it will grow back. So if you go to dietdoctor.com and look that up, on hair loss, they'll reassure you. There's other things out there on the internet. It's very, very rare that it does not grow back. So if that's any assurance at all on this Sunday night, I hope it's an assurance to you. So first tip, don't freak out. It's going to be all right. And don't stop keto just because of it, because the issue happened months ago. Most likely. Sometimes 6 weeks, sometimes 3 months before you see it. But do good things for yourself. It'll come back. And that's all I had to say. I hope that's good. Feel free to share. Thanks. Bye.